Good morning, darling.
Good morning, Charles.
It certainly is.
What certainly is what?
A good morning. A tremendously good morning. There's not a cloud in the sky and everything looks newly washed.
Edith's keeping your breakfast hot. You better ring.
Anything interesting in the Times?
Don't be silly, Charles.
I intend to work all day today.
Good.
It's extraordinary about daylight, isn't it?
How do you mean?
Well, how it reduces everything to normal.
Does it?
Yes, it does.
I'm sure I'm very glad to hear it.
You're awfully glacial this morning.
Are you surprised?
Well, frankly, yes. I expected more of you.
Well, really?
I've always considered you a woman of perception and understanding.
Perhaps this is one of my off days.
Good morning, Edith.
Good morning, sir.
Feeling fit?
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
How's cooking?
Oh, I don't rightly know. I haven't asked her, sir.
You should. You should begin every day by asking everyone how they are. It oils the wheels.
Yes, sir.
Greet her for me, will you?
Oh, yes, sir.
That will be all for the moment, Edith.
Yes, sir.
I wish you wouldn't be facetious with the servants, Charles. It confuses them and undermines their morale.
I consider that point of view retrogressive, if not downright futile.
I don't care what you consider it. I have to run the house, and you don't.
Are you implying that I couldn't?
You're at liberty to try.
I take back what I said about it being a good morning. It's a dreadful morning.
You'd better eat your breakfast while it's hot.
It isn't.
Now look here, Charles. In your younger days, this display of roguish flippancy might have been alluring. In a middle-aged novelist, it's nauseating.
Would you like me to writhe at your feet in a frenzy of self-abasement?
That would be equally nauseating, but certainly more appropriate.
I really don't know what I've done that's so awful.
You behaved abominably last night. You wounded me and insulted me.
I was the victim of an aberration.
Nonsense. You were drunk.
Drunk?
You had 4 strong dry martinis before dinner, a great deal too much burgundy at dinner. Heaven knows how much port and kummel with Dr. Bradman while I was doing my best to entertain that mad woman. And 2 doubles brandies later, I gave them to you myself. Of course you were drunk.
So that's your story, is it?
You refused to come to bed. And finally, when I came down at 3 in the morning to see what had happened to you, I found you in an alcoholic coma, lying on the sofa with the fire out and your hair all over your face.
I was not the least drunk, Ruth. Something happened to me. You must believe that. Something very peculiar happened.
Nonsense.
Well, it isn't nonsense. I know it looks like nonsense now in the clear, remorseless light of day, but last night it was anything but nonsense.
I
honestly had some sort of hallucination.
I would really rather not discuss it any further.
But you must discuss it. It's very disturbing.
Oh, there, I agree with you. It showed you up in a most unpleasant light. I find that extremely disturbing.
During the seance last night, I was convinced I heard Elvira's voice.
Nobody else did.
Well, I can't help that. I did.
You couldn't have.
Later on, I was equally convinced she was in this room. I saw her distinctly and talked to her. After you'd gone up to bed, we had quite a cozy little chat.
And you honestly expect me to believe that you weren't drunk?
I know I wasn't drunk. If I had been all that drunk, I should have a dreadful hangover now, shouldn't I?
I'm not at all sure that you haven't.
Well, I don't have a trace of a headache, and my tongue's not coated. Here, look.
I've not the least desire to look at your tongue. Kindly put it in again.
I know what it is. You're frightened.
Frightened? Rubbish. What is there to be frightened of?
Elvira! You wouldn't have minded all that much even if I had been drunk. It's all because it was mixed up with Elvira.
I seem to remember telling you last night before dinner that your views of female psychology
all began.
When what all began?
We were talking too much about Elvira. It's dangerous to have someone strong behind your mind when you begin dabbling in the occult.
Oh, she certainly wasn't strongly in my mind.
She was in mine.
Oh, she was she?
You tried to get me to say that she was more physically attractive than you, so you could hold it over me.
I did not. I don't give a hoot how physically attractive she was.
Oh, yes, you do. Your whole being is devoured by jealousy.
This is too much.
Women. My God, when I think of women.
Your view of women is academic, to say the least of it. Just because you've always been dominated by them, it doesn't necessarily follow that you know anything about them.
I've never been dominated by anyone.
You were hag-ridden by your mother until you were 23. And then you got into the clutches of that awful Mrs. whatever her name was.
Mrs. Winthrop Llewellyn.
I'm not interested. Then there was Elvira. She ruled you with a rod of iron.
Elvira never ruled anyone. She was far too elusive. That was one of her greatest charms.
Then there was Maud Charteris.
My affair with Maud Charteris lasted exactly 7.5 weeks, and she cried the whole time.
The tyranny of tears. Then there
If
was...
you wish to make an inventory of my sex life, dear, I think it only fair to tell you you've missed out several episodes. I shall consult my diary and give you a complete list after lunch.
It's no use trying to impress me with your routine, amorous exploits.
The only woman in my whole life who's tried to dominate me is you. You've been at it for years.
That is completely untrue.
Oh, no, it isn't. You boss me and bully me and order me about. You won't even let me have a hallucination if I want to.
Alcohol will ruin your whole life if you let it get a hold on you, you know.
Once and for all, Ruth, I should like you to understand that what happened last night had absolutely nothing to do with alcohol. You've adroitly rationalized the whole situation to your own satisfaction, but your deductions are based on complete fallacy. I'll admit it was an aberration, some sort of odd psychic delusion brought on by suggestion or hypnosis. I was stone cold sober from first to last and extremely upset due to the bar.
You were upset indeed. What about me?
You behaved with a stolid, obtuse lack of comprehension that frankly shocked me.
I considered that I was remarkably patient. I shall know better next time.
Rather than extending a gentle, comradely hand to guide me, you shouted staccato orders like a sergeant major.
You seem to forget that you gratuitously insulted me.
I did not.
You called me a gutter snipe. You told me to shut up. And when I quietly suggested that we should go up to bed, you said, with the most disgusting leer, that it was an immoral suggestion.
I was talking to Elvira.
If you were, I can only say that it conjures up a fragrant picture of your first marriage.
My first marriage was perfectly charming, and I think it's in the worst possible taste for you to sneer at it.
I'm not nearly so interested in your first marriage as you seem to think I am. It's your second marriage that is absorbing me at the moment. It seems to be on the rocks.
Only because you persist in this ridiculous attitude.
My attitude is that of any normal woman whose husband gets drunk and hurls abuse at her.
I was not drunk.
Be quiet. They'll hear you in the kitchen.
I don't care if they hear me in the Folkestone Down Hall. I was not drunk.
Control yourself, Charles.
How can I control myself in the face of your idiotic damned obstinacy?
You'd
It's
better,
giving me claustrophobia.
you'd better bring up Dr. Brandon.
Can I clear, Mom?
Yes, Edith.
Cook wants to know about lunch, Mom.
Will you be into lunch, Charles?
Oh, please don't worry about me. I shall be perfectly happy with a bottle of gin in my bedroom.
Don't be silly, dear. Tell Cook we shall both be in.
Yes, sir.
I'm going into hike this morning. Is there anything you want?
Not a great deal, but I doubt if you could get it in height.
Tell Cook to put Alka-Seltzer down on my list, will you, Edith?
Yes.
It's clouding over.
You have a genius for understatement.
Don't worry about the table, Edith. I'll put it away.
Yes.
Be reasonable, Ruth.
I'm perfectly reasonable.
I wasn't pretending. I honestly thought I saw Elvira, and when I heard her voice, I was appalled.
You put up with it for 5 years.
Naturally, when I saw her, I got a shock of my life. That's why I dropped the glass.
But you couldn't have seen her.
Well, I know I couldn't, but I did.
I'm willing to concede, then, that you imagined you did.
Exactly. That's what I've been trying to explain for hours.
Well, then, there's obviously something wrong with you.
Yes, there's something wrong with me. Something fundamentally wrong. That's why I've been imploring your sympathy, and all I got was a sterile temperance lecture.
You had been drinking, Charles. There's no denying that.
Well, no more than usual.
Well, how do you account for it, then?
Well, I can't account for it. That's what's so awful.
Did you feel quite well yesterday? During the day, I mean.
Perfectly.
What did you have for lunch?
Well, you should know. You had it with me.
Oh, let me see. There was lemon sole and that cheese thing.
Why should having a cheese thing at lunch make me see my deceased wife after dinner?
You never know. It was rather rich.
Well, why didn't you see your dead husband then? You had as much of it as I did.
This isn't getting us anywhere at all.
Well, of course it isn't. And it won't. As long as you insist on ascribing supernatural phenomena to colonic irritation.
Supernatural.
Well, I admit she's been much less agitating.
Perhaps you ought to see a nerve specialist.
I'm not in the least bit neurotic and never have been.
A psychoanalyst, then.
I refuse to endure months of expensive humiliation, only to be told at the end of it that at the age of 4, I was in love with my rocking horse.
Well, what do you suggest, then?
Well, I don't suggest anything. I'm profoundly uneasy.
Perhaps there's something pressing on your brain.
If there was something pressing on my brain, I should have violent headaches, shouldn't I?
Not necessarily. An uncle of mine had a lump the size of a cricket ball pressing on his brain for years, and he never felt a thing.
Well, I know I should know if I had anything like that.
He didn't.
What happened to him?
He had it taken out, and he's been bright as a button ever since.
But did he ever suffer any delusions? Did he think he saw things that weren't there?
No, I don't think so.
Well, why are we talking about him for then? It's a sheer waste of time.
I only brought him up as an example.
I'm going mad.
How do you feel now?
Physically, you mean?
Altogether.
Well, apart from being worried, I feel normal.
Oh, good. You're not hearing or seeing anything in the least unusual.
No, nothing.
You're absolutely ruined. That border by the sundial, it looks like a mixed salad.
Oh my God.
What's the matter now?
She's here again.
What do you mean? Who's here again?
Elvira!
Pull yourself together and don't be absurd.
It's all those nasturtiums. They're so vulgar.
I like nasturtiums.
Like what?
They're all right in moderation, but in a mass like that, they look beastly.
Help me, Ruth. You've got to help me.
What did you mean about nasturtiums?
Never mind about that. I tell you, she's here.
You've been having a nice scene, haven't you? I can hear you all the way down the garden.
Oh, please mind your own business.
Oh, if you're behaving like a lunatic isn't my business, nothing is.
I expect it was about me, wasn't it? I know I should feel sorry, but I'm not. I'm delighted.
Oh, how can you be so inconsiderate?
Inconsiderate? I like that, I must say. I've been doing everything I can to help. I've controlled myself admirably. And I should like to say here and now that I don't believe a word about your damned hallucinations. You're up to something, Charles. There's been a certain furtiveness in your manner for weeks. Why don't you be honest and tell me what it is?
You're wrong, Ruth. You're dead wrong. I haven't been in the least furtive.
You're trying to upset me. For
last night, I don't know.
Okay. In the future, you must promise that in the future you'll only come when I'm alone.
Making me feel so unwanted. I've never been treated so rudely.
Well, I don't mean to be rude, but
It's all your own fault for having married a woman that's incapable of seeing beyond the nose on her face. If she had a grain of real sympathy or affection for you, she believed what you told her.
how can you expect anyone to believe this?
You'd be surprised how gullible people are. We often laugh about it on the other side.
Charles,
Yes?
I'm awfully sorry I was cross.
But Ruth,
I understand everything now. I do, really.
you do?
Of course I do.
Look out, she's up to something.
Oh, be quiet.
Of course, dear. We'll all be quiet, won't we? We'll be as quiet as little mice. I want you to come upstairs with me and go to bed.
The way that woman parks on bed is nothing short of erotic.
I'll deal with you later.
Whenever you like, darling. Come along.
Really, Ruth, I would rather not go to bed in the middle of the morning.
Oh, how you've changed, darling.
Oh, don't be disgusting.
I'm sorry, dear. I didn't mean to be. Come along.
What are you up to?
I'm not up to anything. I just want you to go quietly to bed and wait there until Dr. Bradley comes.
No, Ruth, you're wrong.
Come along.
Help
She'll
me,
have you in
Elvira.
a straitjacket before you know where you are.
Help me, Elvira.
I would, darling, with pleasure, but I can't think how.
I can. Listen, Ruth,
Yes, dear.
if I promise to go up to bed, will you let me stay here for 5 minutes longer?
I really think it would be better for you to...
Bear with me, however mad it may seem, bear with me for another 5 minutes.
All right. What is it?
Sit down now.
All right.
Now, listen carefully, Ruth.
Take a cigarette. It'll soothe your nerves.
I don't want a cigarette.
Then you shan't have one, darling.
Ruth, I want to explain clearly and without emotion that beyond any shadow of a doubt, the ghost or shade or whatever you want to call it of my first wife Elvira is in this room now.
Yes, dear.
I know you don't believe me and you're trying desperately to humor me, but I intend to prove it.
Why not lie down and have a nice rest, and you can prove anything you want to later on.
She might not be here later.
Don't worry, she will.
Oh, God.
Hush, dear.
I promise you'll do what I asked, Elvira.
That depends on what it is.
Ruth. See that, I'm sorry, please?
Well, I don't see why I should, really. You've been insufferable since I materialized.
Ruth, you see that vase of flowers on the mantel?
Yes, dear, I did it myself this morning.
Very untidy, if I may say so myself.
You may not.
Very well, I never will again, I promise.
Elvira will now carry that vase from the mantel to the table and back again. You will, Elvira, won't you? Just to please me?
I don't see why I should. Huh.
Please?
All right, just this once. Not that I approve of all these Herman the Great carryings on.
All right, now watch carefully, Ruth.
Very well.
Come on, Elvira.